Welcome to the Refined Life Podcast. I'm Big Vinny. Over there is Jeff Suter. Jared Blake can't get here because he's stuck in the snow, sliding down a big old hill. But that's okay. We've replaced him today with our friends Chad and Chelsea. Now, these two are going to be way different than anything you've ever seen on our show before, and I promise you're going to love it because we love doing different things. I've known this guy, met this guy, probably 10 years ago, 12 years ago, something like that. Yeah. He had a promotions company / booking agency, I guess you'd call it, working with Average Joe's with my buddies over there. We had signed to the label. Our buddy Eric Hurt said, you got to come in and meet Chad. Go in and meet him. Instantly loved his style. This dude was on the phone. He had a phone in this hand, a phone in this hand. There was 3 ringing on the desk. He still had corded phones. It was crazy. But he was out there booking. He was booking the Moonshine Bandits and Lenny Cooper, and there was tons of them there. Colt Ford, all these guys you were booking. And the guy was relentless. And I watched him continue to grow that and get into some other artists. I don't even know if we need to talk about them or not, but that's up to you when you get into that.
Yeah, we absolutely can.
Okay, I just didn't know where we stood on that. Yeah. But he got into booking all these other artists, grew a pretty big artist called Up Church.
Yeah.
Helped grow him and get him up there and going. And one of the cool things that I saw is as he transitioned, and me and him had several calls about some potential shows and things, but I watched him transition into doing the thing that he absolutely loves. And with our show, Refined Life Podcast, we never wanted to come on and be like, we're going to teach you how to make millions of dollars or we're going to change your life altogether. But what we do want to teach people is if you wake up every day and you do what you love and you go out there and you get to have a success doing that, that's more important than the overall amount of money you make. Your happiness, the way that you feel, not just happiness, but true joy. When you have true joy in life. And I think when you wake up every day and you get to work on the things you love, that's what brings you true joy in life. You're not stressed. You're not, hating your life. I got so many buddies that wake up every day and the first 45 minutes is them trying to talk themselves into actually getting up and going there. So with Chad and Chelsea, I love the fact that y'all have taken that, took these glasses off for a reason. I love the fact that y'all went out there and y'all found y'all's thing, and it's different. I don't know many people in this space. I'm sure there's a whole group and massive amount of people that do this. It's not something that I'm familiar with, so I'm always eager to learn about the things I don't know about, but also understand what got y'all to this point, what made y'all fall in love with this stuff, and I'm gonna let you kind of take over and tell them a little bit about what y'all are doing now and all that good stuff.
What a wonderful introduction, dude. That was great. I did meet you about 10 or 12 years ago at Average Joe's. I've been involved in booking pretty much my whole life, playing in metal bands, heavy metal bands. In 2013, I did a tour, and I spent about 150 days on the road with a ska band that used to be managed by Joey Ramone. Chelsea actually was the merch person for us. And I came back broke, losing my place because I couldn't afford it. I was making $40 a day, and I had to feed us both on it. But I got some
damn, $40 a day wouldn't feed me halfway.
Yeah. So I had to come back and reevaluate things, and it was literally like us throwing a dart at the map. Me and Chelsea, I made a call to a Craigslist ad. It was Chris Hurt.
Chris, not Eric. Sorry.
I got a call, or I called him, and he was like, kind of told him my backstory, and he's like, man, I want you to come up to Nashville and meet me. So before I went up there, I had this idea of like a used car salesman, like I'm going to make you a star with a cigar and all. And I got up there, met him. I was wearing like a turtleneck and gloves. It's like the heat of summer because I really wanted to impress him. I didn't want my tattoos to be the first thing that kind of threw him off. And after the thing, he's like, why are you wearing that turtleneck? You got tattoos or something? I was like, no, I don't think so. He's like, man, take it off. He's like, and he showed up his tattoos. So Chris Hurt gave me a chance, and with that, dude, I used the same like hard work ethic I had playing in punk bands, and like I used to hustle CDs and t-shirts out of the trunks of cars. If we would do a tour with no money to tour, every city we stopped in, I'd go to a mall, I'd go up to somebody, hey, what kind of music you like Nickelback? Okay, cool.
Guerrilla
like
marketing, baby.
Whatever they like, that's what this was. So I used those same things. Chris gave me that opportunity. And just having hard work, we stumbled upon Up Church right when his videos were kind of like in the 50, 60,000. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea what country rap was. When I moved up here and introduced to it, I was like, this makes money? And I don't want to name any names,
lot of money.
But I was like, people like stuff like this. So then I started seeking out what I felt was the most authentic version of that. When I found him, he kind of had a punk rock attitude. That's kind of where our relationship started. And from there, we've worked with a ton of people. We've worked with Struggle Jennings, Jelly Roll. We've even worked with people like Shaquille O'Neal, Trey Cyrus. we've been able to do so many cool things I never would have thought at as a punk rocker back in 2013. Like, there were times where I would leave, like the first time when I met Shaq, I had a 14-hour notice to drive 14 hours for this thing, for a music video, and to get one of our artists in the music video. And I literally took off, drove all the way down there, got there, and the director comes out. I was at Full Sail in Orlando. The director comes out and says, I got some bad news, guys. Shaq just called, and he's not going to be able to make it. And I'm sitting there just like everything. Like, just so sad.
Soul sucked out of you right there on the spot.
So sad. And then all of a sudden, Shaq comes walking out. He had played a prank on everybody, you know. So I've got to do a lot of cool things. But as far as like kind of talking about what we're doing now, alongside that, I've always been into true crime. I've always been into the weird, dark things, you know, just ever since a kid, you know, like a lot of people. And it was
so The Nightmare Before Christmas was a favorite.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely watched in our household.
Yeah.
It's more of a Chelsea thing for sure.
Yeah.
But
my son loves it. So.
Yeah, and not to take over, I know you probably got some to add in there too. But
oh no, I mean, just being side by side with you on the whole journey. I think moving into the reason why we're here, like right now, is like music has always been a huge part of our lives, and it's been an absolute dream of ours to work in the music industry. However, it was a couple years ago when we realized that what we thought was our dream and was making us happy, and we were making money, and we didn't realize how miserable we actually were. We didn't realize how much our personal life was suffering. We didn't realize how much, you know, our kids were suffering because of it. So success is absolutely has no monetary value.
Facts.
And the dream we thought we were living was just...
I got chills when you said that. Yeah. Like, I literally did. Like, that really... There was a point, because I was always broke, dude. I came from nothing. I literally came from... I was the first male in my family to ever graduate. I have people in my family that have... Probably the only one that hasn't done real prison time. I've only been to jail.
A couple times.
It was kind of like, with my last name in the area that I grew up in, Houston County and Midland City, Alabama, if you get pulled over in a car, you're going to the back of the cop car, regardless, just because of the last name, right?
I love it.
So, like, I never had any money. So when I started making money, it empowered me and made me feel like someone. It really made me into an asshole, you know? And my ego got to mammoth proportions, and I thought that I knew everything. And there was a point I was making a lot of money, but I was spending a lot because my biggest fear was to lose it. Never had it. Biggest fear, I was so scared to lose it. So I was literally working 19, 20 hours a day some days.
I told you had all those phones.
Yeah, I did.
He really did.
I did.
He absolutely did.
And it really took, you know, just me getting laid off. And kind of, I literally had to check myself into somewhere for 30 days. Like, I went to a place called the Bridge to Recovery in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Was life-changing for me. And I left there feeling like, dude, everything, I'm successful. I have a family that loves me. I have a few friends that are really true friends that will be there no matter what. And it's just, that's what success is. And now I get to wake up every day and do what I want and live the life I want to, without all the stress of 100 artists calling me, you know, when something goes bad.
Got anything going? You got anything for me?
Exactly.
It really was. I mean, I never thought I'd get to a point where I'd look. We did work for somebody, and I was actually a huge fan when I was younger. Like, I had a poster of them on my wall. I'm not going to say who it is because I will utterly embarrass
Backstreet
myself.
Boys.
But, well, not that. I
Big
wish
Vinny.
I would have worked for Backstreet Boys. It's a different conversation.
Yeah.
But it got to the point where, like, I saw their name come up on my phone, and I was like, oh my God,
Cringing.
if this guy calls me one more time, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to absolutely lose my shit because I can't. It's like I'm trying to do I'm trying to be a wife, I'm trying to be a mom, I got to take kids to school, I got to, like, cook dinner and all these things, but I also have to book a 40-day tour, and it was just,
You know, coming from an artist myself, and I've toured and played since I guess I got my first record deal when I was 22, and before that we were playing frat parties and stuff like that. But, you know, we signed this record. We went from playing frat houses and, you know, small bars in Nashville to being on the Toby Keith tour in like a year, you know.
Wow.
But as an artist, it was like I constantly was, want to know where are we going next? What are we doing next? What's the next thing on the list? What's because you almost every artist I know has this small amount, or some of them a very large amount of narcissism, because it's like you want everybody to like your music, you want everybody to like what you're doing, you don't ever want to feel like you're sitting still. So as a person now that I book a lot of shows myself, and we've throughout the years talked a lot about that, but I put together a lot of shows, I do a lot of things, and I can tell you, even on a smaller level like what I've done, the amount of phone calls that it takes. That's why you had all the phones again, but the amount of phone calls it takes. But you said something real interesting to me. It's just so time consuming, and if you are trying to be a mom and a dad and all these other things you're trying to be, and then on top of that you have 40 artists that are basically big kids. Let's just be honest. They're like big kids, and they want all your time and attention. They want to feel like they're the number one on your list. They're the priority, especially as they get a little bit more famous. But what you said was interesting to me. You talked about when you got all this money, you kind of became an asshole. And you started to believe the hype of yourself. And, that's something I think you're not alone in. It never affected me in that way, simply because I guess I was always looking at like you don't make it until you become Toby Keith, because the way I was signed into the world. So it's like we come in and we got to the point where we're making 25, 30 grand a night, and I was still like, dang, we suck. Toby Keith's making $1 million, $5 million, whatever. He sells $1 million in merchandise on that, And so I kind of always had that humble vibe about that. But I have so many friends, NFL players, basketball players, NBA, whatever. And, obviously you are friends with Shaq, and Shaq has a similar story to that about how he got to that point till his dad called him in and told him he was going to basically,
I wouldn't say we're friends. I got to work with him.
Well, you got to work with him either way, but when you listen to his story, similar thing. He had got to where he believed all the hype about himself. And I think what happens is, for y'all, you realize like we're waking up every day and we're making money, but we're building somebody else's dream.
Yes.
You're trying to make that artist famous and all that. Yeah. And the second that they get where they're going, and you're one stepping stone, they will leave you and they will go to William Morris or CAA or wherever else.
It happens so many times. It became like it had an effect on me the first 10 times it happened. Yeah. Then it was just like, all right, brother.
See you later.
But like, that's
it's happened to me. Yeah. Like I've got
and this dude is life shattering when you pour your heart and you call this person, they're like, I love you, brother, and all this. And like when things really hit the fan for us, I found out who was really in our corner. And when it happened, it was absolutely terrible, right? We lost everything. We had like a 10,000 square foot venue and store in Columbus, Georgia. We had a second home. We lost. We relationships with our kids. Like I had a kid that was having some issues and going through some things. So like it affected us in a way to a lot of people. Like if you haven't been through that, like there may not be a tomorrow for some people. Like it really took a lot for me. I mean, to the point I had to check myself in somewhere, so it's but now looking back, it was like, man, it's really a great thing to have happened, because I got to see, not only because me and Chelsea were always like the redheaded stepchildren in the country rap game, because we are different. We're into like weird things that isn't normal. So we were in the back. We weren't in the forefront. We were in the background, but we were making a ton of stuff happen, and a lot of people were getting credit for the hard work we put in.
Yes.
And I have, we've always kept receipts. I learned that from day one. I can't, if someone says something, I've got a text, I've got an email. Some people are like, damn, man, you just sent me a text, you sent me 2 emails. I was like, yeah, there's a reason for that. I've got 3 different ways of you approving this or disproving this, We found out that in the beginning, and like
I need to be better at that.
yeah, you have to, man. It's just something you kind of you get programmed to do. But yeah, like you said, there were so many times I get it was not even a call. Like you literally spending time drive. At one time, we bought a bus to drive the bus, to book the shows, to go and make sure that the money was right. There were so many times I was in an office this big with a guy. I knew he was screwing us over because I had done a head count on my phone to every head in the venue, and you're telling me there's only 500 in here. Well, I counted 1,200 in front of you. That wasn't my job. I was the agent. That was the manager, the tour manager's job. So, it really hurt. But in the long run, all we've ever wanted to do is really put focus into ourselves and build something for ourselves.
Absolutely.
That's kind of where we're at right now.
So before you get into the passion that you guys now get to chase, I want to ask one major question, because we are trying to help people better their lives in some shape, form, or fashion. And you've said some fantastic things, both of you have, and mainly that passion is greater than monetary value, right?
Profit.
Like,
Passion over profit.
Passion over profit all day, every day. But you had to learn that some of them tribulations were actually blessings.
Yeah.
It takes time to figure that out, right? But you also said it got to the point where you had to check yourself into a center.
Yeah.
So what's your biggest takeaway of what you learned while at the center?
So I want to say this too. Prior to checking the center, I was always raised like, for a man, if you have emotions or feelings, put them in your damn pocket, get back to work, So I was always like, Chelsea tried so many times for counseling and other things because she could see that some things were wrong with me,
Because I had actually gone 10 years previously to the same place. My mom was the intake coordinator at one point in time. My mom's been through it. My dad's been through it. I've been through it. So having the tools and speaking the language of healing that you learn when you go to a place like the Bridge, all I wanted was for my husband to have that same arsenal in his tool belt. So seeing him go through all this stuff, seeing how loss after loss of personal friendships and professional friendships and all of these things were affecting him, and he was just absolutely spiraling because of it, because he didn't know how to handle it. And it was the greatest thing that happened, him finally kind of laying, it was his ego and his defenses down, and laying all of that down and saying, okay, because if I don't do this, I don't know what's next. I don't know if there is a next. And because of the way he was raised, it was almost to him as shameful as, it was almost easier to, not have a tomorrow than to, lay everything down and say, okay, I'll ask for help.
Right. Yeah.
So I went kicking and screaming, by the way. I didn't go. It was literally to the point. It was Chelsea or the center, and I chose my family. So I went, and it was a shock because they took everything from you. The first 3 days, I could feel cell phones vibrate that weren't there. I'd wake up to noises. So it was a really crazy experience because I became best friends with a big time New York money guy. That was dealing with some things, thought he was, in his own life. And then my other friend was a DEA guy, which I won't say his name because I don't think he can legally even hang out with me. But my biggest takeaway from that was to love myself, to give my, to being able to finally accept some things that I had to kind of held on my shoulders and had blamed myself for. And one of the biggest things, I lost a friend 12 years ago. I found him passed away, and it had me and my kid. He was 8 at the time. It had a huge impact on me, and I had always kind of blamed myself, hey, should I have been there earlier? Should I have been there the night before? So it got to a point. It was just consuming my life, and my biggest takeaway from that is that, and not to be judgmental, because I was in there with so many people. I was in there with people like drug addicts. That at first glance, when I see people like that, because I come from a long history of just ruined families from drugs, I'd have a different opinion then. But then when I heard their story, I'm like, holy shit, who wouldn't do drugs? If you were in that scenario, who wouldn't? So to not judge people based on, sit down and talk to them, learn about them, because they probably have a story to tell, and to love yourself. And it's okay to get help. It's okay to admit that you're messed up and you need some help.
I love it.
I truly think one of the greatest lessons you can learn is to learn how to love yourself. And in fact, whenever I was on Biggest Loser, which was my version of rehab, I was there for about 6 months. Why I say rehab, whether you're going for drugs or if you're going for mental capacity, if you're going for porn addiction, whatever it is that you're trying to get through in your life. For me, it was eating everything in sight. But what I was there to find out is, why did I eat everything in sight? What was I trying to hide? What was I trying to to shove back as far as I could and get that dopamine dump to get me past the pain of that day.
Well, you chose food. He's saying, hearing people's stories who wouldn't do drugs, food was your drug.
Yeah, food was my drug, and that's what helped me. And the thing about food was, especially in the music industry, I chose the drug that was you have to eat. But I chose the drug that it's like, oh, if we're down, let's go get a bite to eat. We'll feel better.
Yeah.
If we're up, like, hey, we need to celebrate. We need to go get some food. Hey, it's somebody's birthday. Hey, it's somebody. Your single came out. Hey, it's another party.
Yeah.
Now, Butter was the opposite of me. He had alcohol was his thing, and he had to battle with that. And now he's a year sober and all that. But everybody chooses the different ways they try to fill up the empty in their heart. For me, it's always been, it leads me back to Jesus. It's always led me back to being with God and being in that point of like, man, there's this hole you're trying to fill up with everything else, all these accomplishments. My big thing was food and accomplishments. Well, I got the record deal. I was 500 pounds. I wasn't supposed to get a record deal. Got the record deal. Oh, we got the single on, we're on CMT. We got nominated for an award. Like all these things. I could keep saying, see, I told you so. And finally one day I could look at everybody, and when I went to Biggest Loser and I learned how to love myself more, I didn't no longer want to look at people and say, I told you so, because I wasn't running from anything. I wanted to be an example and say, see, you can too. And I think that's one of the biggest things you learn when you learn to love yourself is it's not this combative, look at me. It's this combative, like, man, you could do the same thing.
Yeah.
You could be this happy. You could be the person that wakes up every day and does what you love. And so when you talk about loving yourself, I think it's one of the biggest things you can learn to do just to better your life in general. And we had a song called Love Me First that we put out on our Average Joe's record. And that's what it was about, is like sometimes you got to take that 30 days, month, year, 2 years, whatever it is for yourself, because you're never going to be the right kind of husband, the right kind of dad, the right kind of mom, whatever, unless you are happy with yourself. And so I think that's a beautiful lesson to teach people. And like I said, I appreciate you asked the exact question that I was going to ask. So that's why we're on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
We ride together, bro.
Yeah. Success isn't money, man. Success is relationships and what quality of life you have.
Yeah.
And I do want to add too that I do know a lot of people who are struggling with stuff, but they look at other people's struggle and they say, well, at least I'm not that bad. Yeah. At least I'm not, well, I don't have a drug addiction, but they have a food addiction. I'm not an alcoholic, but they have a gambling addiction. Addiction and pain manifest in so many different forms and fashions. So just because you don't view yourself as bad or as down as somebody else is, you've still got to step up and champion for yourself. And if faith is needed to bring yourself into that, or just personal strength or whatever, use the tools that you have, and realize, like, just because you're not as bad as somebody else, you still owe it to yourself to get some type of...
To do better.
Yes,
Yeah.
to do better.
That's
be your best.
You owe you, right?
Phenomenal advice, too, because I hear so many people... I work in the weight loss industry, and I work in the health and wellness industry, but I hear so many people say, man, if I can just lose 15 pounds, I'll be happy. I'm like, that ain't how it works.
No.
Yeah.
The number on the scale ain't what determines if you're happy or not. Most people, especially extremely obese people, it's because they've used food as their tool to fight against things. And once you find out, oh, that's why that I use food. Yeah. It's because of this childhood trauma, or it's because of this divorce or this breakup or this assault that I went through, or watching my mom and dad have this, it all stems back to something. Yeah. And so that's what we kind of fill our lives up with. But with that being said,
passion.
You've went through, you built this awesome company, you've made great money, you've done all these things. You hit this wall where you're like, man, I've got myself, I'm here at the bridge to get better, which was a beautiful thing. Yeah. You get that. Now it's time to focus on you and on y'all. What y'all are going to build, what y'all going to do. So give us a little intro to what it is y'all do. Because I didn't want to give anything away.
Well, I want to give you a little backstory.
Because I don't know how to say it the right way.
All right, so I want to start because you mentioned after the bridge we came back, we didn't know what to do. So we have helped out in so many music videos. I secured the location, like Hank Sr.'s grave, and had cops sitting there, and we shot a music video. You won't see our name in any credit, So we came back and said, you know what? A lot of times we did all this work, but at the end of the day, the videographer got all the praise. So I was like, well, let's go to film school.
Damn, we can
learn how to use some cameras. We ended up going to school in the Nashville area. I don't want to name because it was not what we thought it was. We learned how to use cameras, and our whole idea is, like, for the last 10 years we've been into the buying and selling of true crime relics, oddities, taxidermy, and human remains specimens, which I'll explain. I brought some show and tell today too. So it all started, we kind of had, tell how, like, we started our collecting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take that for a second?
It was really early into our relationship, and just through other stuff in our life, we both had a fascination, I guess, with everything from horror movies to true crime, and absolutely we're the ones cuddled up on the couch watching a Snapped on Netflix or whatever. It's just something that we both that piques our interest. So one day he kind of looked at me and he was like, how would you feel about like buying something like a true crime artifact? And I was like, oh, thank God, because I was just looking at like a piece of Jeffrey Dahmer's like apartment building I wanted to get for you for Christmas. So because he was like, I've broached this topic with other people that I've dated, and it didn't really go over well. It was looked at weird or less than or whatever. And I was like, it's interesting. I was like, we go to museums for fun. We go, there's Alcatraz East in Pigeon Forge that he has the Bonnie and Clyde car, has OJ's Bronco, Ted Bundy's car, stuff from 9/11, stuff from Column. I mean, it's just the range of stuff is incredible.
And this is in
Pigeon Forge.
Pigeon Forge. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. And so we go see, like, pay money to go see these things like other millions of Americans do. We go to Ripley's and see the oddities. And yes, would I love to have like a Ripley's at home or have all of these at home? I think that would be really cool, because I think that's something most people don't even think about, crossing that line kind of thing. They'll pay to go see it, but they won't pay to have like own the relics. So from that point on, I guess we kind of became curators of macabre artifacts.
Yes.
So we just started collecting, and our friends would come over and they'd be like, ew, what is that? But then they'd hear like the backstory and stuff and be like, that's actually kind of cool. Or the people that like, my mom is very, I love her, but as I am, she is the complete opposite. She's blonde, tiny, just gorgeous, happy, bubbly, loves Jesus woman, and I love her with all my heart. This is not her thing, but she even we recently went to LA and did a trip out there, and I told her we were going to drive by the O.J. Simpson house where Nicole Brown Simpson and her boyfriend was murdered, and she was like, oh my God, FaceTime me, like, because it's a pop culture sensation. Like, she's very about the court TV stuff, and she'll sit there and watch the court cases from start to finish, and that's her, I guess, niche in the true crime world. So we just came to find that no matter who saw our stuff, there was something that interested them or disgusted them. And we could sit down and have a discussion about it, though, each and every time. So it was really cool, and we took our collection. After about 5 years of collecting, we were able to open a brick and mortar store, and we put all of our collection into the back in a museum. And then the storefront was just kind of selling stuff we thought was cool, like T-shirts, skateboards, records.
Yeah, we bootlegged every punk band's T-shirt. I had a screen printer guy that allegedly had a screen printer guy there, like, what kind of shirt you want, Ramones? Here you go. Allegedly,
you're like a cooler version of Hot Topic with a museum in the back.
That's you know what? Like, we caught a lot of hot topics. We caught those too. We caught a lot of heat because there was a Hot Topic in town, and like we were kind of like.
Now, where's y'all's location of this?
So it was in Columbus, Georgia.
Okay,
it was in Columbus, Georgia, which I don't know if you ever been there. It's real close to Fort Benning.
I played did you college there a few times?
Okay, all right. Yeah. Columbus State or Columbus Tech, one of those. Shout out. So that's where we originally started, and then we're about a year into it, and out of nowhere, COVID hits, and then we're like, man, what are we gonna do? So like, we had employees, and we were literally just paying thousands of dollars a month and not making anything. So I was literally in the shop by myself one day, and I looked on a Facebook Live, and I saw this guy called the Gnarly Toolbox. He was on there selling like Masters of the Universe vintage toys, He-Man toys, live on Facebook in an auction format, and I was like, I can do that. So the next day I got live, and I made like $200 in a couple hours, and I was like, hold on one second, because I've always been a salesman. I've literally got a picture of me from 7-year-olds on the side of the sidewalk selling frogs to people. It's like me and we convinced people they ate bugs. So
Not of you and 7-year-olds, you as a 7-year-old.
As a 7, yes, correct. Let's clarify that. Thank you so much.
The first one was much
She's a
creepier.
smart one. Me and my cousin were 7, 8 years old, and we're selling bullfrogs to people. And then the
Love it.
Dothan Eagle came by and snapped a photo. We made the front page, so
I'd have bought one and threw it. I'd have been cooking that thing.
Yeah.
We eat frog legs where I come from.
Yeah,
so.
no doubt. So once I knew there was a market, of course, I started doing the live thing. The next day, I think me and Chelsea did one, and we built it up to a point where we had actors like Tyler Maine, who played Sabretooth. Yeah. He played Michael Myers in both Rob Zombies. He drove down to us, and we sold his prints on live. Like, I guaranteed him a rough amount. He was like, hey, I'll come down for this amount. And I was like, cool, I'll buy that many in prints. He's like, whatever you make it is just for you.
Yeah.
In the first 20 minutes, I'd already surpassed that. And I could tell him looking at like, okay, like, should we rework this deal? So we end up like doing really well during COVID. As horrible as COVID was for a lot of people, we found our little kind of like spot and filled it, and we started building sets. I started getting people, as we're selling thing in an auction format, I had people in costume like battling each other out in the background.
That's great.
I made characters of things. Like, I had this thing, it was like a little Halloween prop with like a demonic baby, and I called it Demon Baby. I made a song about it, and by the end I ended up selling that thing for a lot of money, because it became a character.
Spirit Halloween prop. Yeah. It was just something you buy at the store, but there was a T-Rex.
Yeah, and then I played a character called, at the time I was 100 pounds heavier. It's called Fat Man of the Opera. So anytime you hear the Phantom of the Opera music and you see me come out costume, it's the deal of the day. So people start clicking on. So we made it into a whole thing, and that that's kind of where it started. It's just like, we started as collectors, then friends wanted to buy our stuff, and then light bulb, and then we started selling things. And I didn't even know a lot of these things we got. I didn't know you could buy them, but you can. Doctors and museums have been buying skulls, skeletons, medical specimens, forever. There's some states like Tennessee. I can sell human remains to. If you're in Tennessee and I acquired it in Tennessee, I can sell it to you, but I can't ship it out of Tennessee.
State lines
exactly.
And stuff like that.
So luckily we have
like legal weed.
Yeah, exactly.
As long as you keep it in that state and they make the money on it, you're good to go.
True that. So we have, we keep a lot of our stuff in Tennessee. We have a location, small spot in Kentucky, just literally for the sole purpose of storing and be able to ship. And then we have a place in Georgia as well. So, what a lot of people don't think about is when a doctor has a skull, he got that skull from somebody. So we've kind of stepped up, and we're kind of, I guess you would say, curator a little bit. Not really a curator, but we're like the middleman. If you want to get something weird for your museum, or if you just want to have something at your house that's kind of weird and odd, give us a call. We'll take care of you.
You know what the best thing about the product you're working with now is it can't call you 65 times a day.
Exactly.
So I mean, you're still doing the same thing. You're trying to book it and find it at a home.
Exactly.
But they can't call you back or email you, so you're good
Once
to go.
The transaction's over.
It depends. Though, because we did have a last rites kit that we acquired. That, long story short, it was, I don't know if you believe in hauntings or not. I do. It was extremely haunted, and I would have rather gotten 65 calls a day from an artist rather than deal with that.
Yes, again. We had some experience. Like, I've always been on the line. Like, I'm one of those people, I got to see it to believe it, And I've even been in situations where things happen. I'm like, no, dog, there's something happening. The wind blew or something, So, but with this thing, man, it was doing some stuff, So we had 3 different paranormal teams come out and do
electro,
whatever that ghost hunt on it. And one of them offered us a significant amount of money, so we're like, yeah, you can buy it, absolutely.
I'd have given it to her. I would take it, please.
But so yeah, we've done a lot of things. So we went through film school to develop a show, and our show is pretty much like how we see it as going. We want to mix elements of like who we are, like and things we grew up watching, like Jackass, Viva La Bam, have a fun element on there, but also like you're following. It's just kind of like American Pickers of the Macabre, Oh,
that's cool, yeah.
And you're getting to see all the different people.
Hey, y'all keep saying the word macabre. What is macabre?
I'll let you.
I got to be educated on this because I don't know.
She's the smart one. So.
Macabre is just anything considered out of the ordinary. So anything from, I guess, literally anything that we have here that we deal in could be considered.
But was like macabre somebody's last name?
No.
No, it's just a word.
It's just a word. Okay.
Like kind of dark and eerie. Okay. Not the normal. Sorry, I forgot where I was going. Oh, go ahead. What you were saying.
I'm just a dictionary over here.
I just wanted to know, but so you were saying, so y'all started collecting these things. You got your things going now.
Yeah.
you had this artifact that was
haunted artifact. Yeah.
And where I was going to go with that is, so like me, maybe I'm not as connected to the spiritual realm, other than the Holy Ghost. My brother is super connected. Now we're Christians. We grew up Pentecostal, Holy Ghost and speaking in tongues, the whole nine. My brother can walk into a room, and if there's something in there,
he'll know
but without seeing it.
Yeah.
He'll be like, nope, not going in there. I'm like, why? I bought this old church. Remember, I don't know if you well, this might have been before we knew each other. 2007, I bought this old church over on West Nashville, right off 46th Avenue in Georgia, 46 in Georgia. So I buy this old church, get in there. I got my buddy Scott in one room, my buddy Michael in one room, my other buddy James Gage upstairs, and then I had a bedroom. And my brother gets ready to move in. He's walking through the house, and my brother's jovial. He's like me, he's a big old redneck. Hey, man, how's it going, He gets to Scott's room. He goes, I can't go in there. I'm like, why? He goes, there's something in there, Vinny. I'm like, what? He's like, there's something in there. I can't go in there. I'm like, bro, what do you mean there's something in there? He goes, there's something evil. There's something, I can't go in there. And then I talked to Scott. I was like, Scott, my brother, he thinks there's something evil in your room. He goes, man, I've been laying there, and I'll wake up and something will be shaking the side of my bed, and then I'll come to, and he goes, it's like I have that happen all the time. I'm like, so weird. Well, he had started dating this girl who was into Wiccan stuff, which I don't know the whole elements or whatever it was. And my brother's like, I can't go in there. And he kept saying that. And Scott kept having these dreams where he'd wake up and feel like somebody was shaking his bed and all this other stuff. I didn't feel nothing. I was like, I walk in, I was like, I feel fine.
Yeah.
Maybe I had a force field around me or something, I was like, they'd hear noise. I'm like, dude, that's mice. This thing was built in the 50s. Okay, we got mice. And then one day my brother said, we got to figure out what's in there. Well, he had started dating this girl. She had brought over a bunch of books and all this other stuff. Well, then one day he went in there and she found this Ouija board. Or she brought it, she goes, and Scott found the Ouija board. And it was from like 1960s.
Oh, wow.
Like old Ouija board. And my brother felt it. Like as soon as Scott found it, he's like, he felt the whole house. And he comes like, something in there right now. Scott comes out, he goes, is it this? And my brother's like, I can't be around that. And just like walks off, and I'm like, of course I'm sitting there, I'm like holding it, I'm like, I don't feel anything. But my brother's like connected. Scott's connected. My wife, everywhere we go, she has like the flickering lights, and she tells the story obviously better than I do. She's like, what do you think this is? She goes, it's been in every place we went. I was like, it's just bad wiring. She's like, we've lived in 5 different places in 5 years. And you think it's the wiring? I'm like, yeah. She goes, in every place? I'm like, I don't have another explanation for it. I was like, she goes, you don't feel anything weird? I'm like, nope. So it's interesting that different people are connected differently than than other people.
Yeah.
So
I truly believe in that, man. I think some people are, like Chelsea's very much like your relative. We go to a place all the time. She's like, I don't like it, and I'm the same way as you. I'm like, well, I don't feel nothing. I'm cool, So, and we've got to do some cool things. We've been to ghost hunt at Gettysburg at like 3 a.m. and we've been to some of the most infamous sites in the United States, and the only time I feel anything is when it's in a bad area of town. I'm just like more like I'm more worried about the humans.
You're on alert. I'm on alert.
I'm more worried about the humans than I am the spirits. But
yeah. So I filmed a movie one time called Mud Dog Blues. Well, we filmed the trailer to pitch the movie. And we were down there, and there was this old green elevator / barn, whatever, right beside where we were filming. And we were filming in Tutwiler, Mississippi, where the Ground Zero Club is that Morgan Freeman owns, and it was his club. He put us up for the week. It was great. So we're down there filming this thing, and I come up with this idea. I said, dude, we need to film a ghost show. I'm like, what are we going to call it? I said, it's going to be called Ha Ha Haunted. And they're like, what happens? I was like, we're going to like find stuff, and it's going to be so blatantly obvious that it's like a brand new refrigerator, but I'm going to be like, what could be in this refrigerator? And we open it up, it's like nothing. And I slam the door. But we started doing, but we got out there that night, and we started messing around, and about 3 of the guys got so scared because they're like, no, there really is something in here. I'm like, and I'm laughing my butt off. Well, we go back and watch the video, then there's all these little globes flying through this video, like orbs. Yeah. And like, you see that? I'm like, that's probably just dust flying through there. It's like, does dust glow? I'm like, in the right light.
Have you seen the picture going around from the family that went to the movie theaters at Opryland this past week? And it's got like Miss McGavick behind them or something.
Wow.
I saw it. So as much as I believe, I try to disprove everything first. I try to find the logical explanation.
Devil's advocate over here. I like it.
I do, because I know that there is supernatural. I know that stuff happens, but so many people want it so badly that they'll convince themselves that this is what, because there are like videos, there could be dust that comes up as orbs, it could be a bug, it could be, there's so many different things that it could be. I saw that picture. I'm not 100% sold on it. I'm really not, because there are apps that exist that you can
make stuff look as
yes, you can.
Dude, AI has changed the game, you know.
Exactly. There are things in the Opry, but to catch something like that so blatantly on camera seems too good to be true, and zooming in and looking at it, it doesn't look quite right.
Have you went through the comments? I
I saw it originally on a paranormal group from Tennessee that I'm a part of, and reading through, because 9 times out of 10 I'll read something through and they're like, this is what it is, or this is what it could be, or this, and everybody was like, wow, oh my god, so cool, this, and I'm like, not a single person offered any kind of other explanation for it, and I don't know. I have no idea, and it's really throwing me. I'm losing sleep over it. Actually,
there was one that I found in the comments that I guess she's a photo editor of some sort.
Yeah,
and so she was claiming to have removed everything that could have been removed, and there was still like a black, like whatever there. Like there was still the outline of whatever we were seeing there.
Yeah.
It's so crazy the day we live in there. You remember the old saying, people say can't believe it unless you see it?
Yeah.
Now that's not true. You know what I mean? Because there's AI, like you said. Like I have seen videos of people imitated, and it's not them. You know, there's a ton of it. So imagine how long the government people have had that. It's probably been going on for 20, 30 years.
Oh yeah, I mean they want to take somebody down that they don't like. They're like, oh look, here's a video of them doing this. I'm like, is it real? I mean, we don't know. I thought about that.
Like the man walking on the moon?
No, I thought about this with Jeffrey Epstein. They wheel this dude out and they keep the body bag open, right? So everybody can see him. But I'm like, how do we know that wasn't just a dummy?
That's true.
That they rolled out in front of everybody so you can see. I'm like, listen, I watched Brad Pitt die, and he's still alive. I've seen a lot of stuff in movies. You know what I mean? I mean, Thanos took out half the world in one snap. You know.
His favorite. We watch YouTube a lot. And we watch a lot of like Dr. Phil and cops and stuff on YouTube. His favorite thing lately has been to find like an ad and like pause it. Baby, come here real quick. And he's like, all right, Dr. Phil's doing this, and he's like, that's not Dr. Phil. Like you want to point out the AI so bad. Or
they're taking like Dr. Phil, The Rock, and all these celebrities, getting professional voice actors that sound like them, but it's always a little off, and it'd be like, let me tell you about hair growth, you know, or something like that. But it's not really them, so they're syncing up the audio with their lips and I can find the other videos that they're using. It's a big thing. It's just, you know, a way to, people see a celebrity and they buy it.
They want to buy it because the celebrity's there. That's I mean, honestly, the Scientologists have known that for a while, but that's really how you sell a product now. And the more we get into it now, your influence and your celebrity will sell more products than anything. And I think that's why you see a lot of YouTubers. You know, I was working with not a YouTuber, but a TikToker this past year. Dude got paid $250,000 to post one story a week. Or sorry, 2 stories a week and one post or reel a week for 6 months.
Wow.
Because he has so much influence. Got 20-something million followers, and they're like, oh, well, if you just do this with our product, we'll give you $250,000.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy crap. Meanwhile, this guy went to war for the country, and he's having trouble getting $35,000 a year from the government.
Right.
That really puts it in perspective, right?
Yeah. But so anyway, so we talked about. I want to get into this plethora of stuff y'all brought, because I mean this is interesting to me because everybody would think this would be the furthest thing that is interesting to me.
Yeah.
And because I am such a I'm Jesus. I love all that. You know, that's where I come from and all that. But I believe if you believe in Jesus and you believe in the light, you also got to understand that the darkness is there too.
Yeah.
And not saying that y'all are dark. I mean, y'all are great people. What I'm saying is the fascination for me is always on both sides, because it's like I want to see everything from this side. I want to see everything from that side. If I was at a court hearing, I want to hear the whole story. I don't want one person to be able to present a side and be like, hey, here's this. So on this podcast, one of the biggest things we always want to do is when we've had controversial things we've talked about, we've had people that have blasted us for our belief on whatever. And we're always like, hey, you're welcome to come on here and talk to us and tell us why you think the way you think.
Yeah.
We're not shut off to hearing your side of things. So I think when people look at me, they're always going to think like, oh, Vinny's always only going to ever have positive and light on there. I'm like, no, I want to hear what happens on this dark side where we got human remains and all this. I want to find out what's going on and what made y'all drive towards
well, you
this.
definitely knocked this one out of the park.
Yeah.
You want to have me some?
Let's see what we got down here.
Do we want to start big
You got
small?
You got Post Malone right there.
That's actually let's start with that one.
Right.
Maybe if you could grab it. So I actually manage this rapper out of Miami named Stitches. I don't know if you remember
Manage.
Stitches.
Yeah, that sounds
Past
familiar.
tense.
Oh yeah, we manage.
He was not a snitch. Just to be just to know, he was not a snitch. His name is Stitches.
His big hit was "Brick in Your Face," which I think Joe Rogan talked about it, and it kind of took him to And then World Star picked up his video. Long story short, he was like a 17-year-old kid at the time with all these face tattoos. So this art piece, there's 3 of these in existence. It's actually done. The artist of this is Philip Jablonski. Serial killer on death row.
Oh, wow.
It's done of Stitches. It was commissioned by a true crime art dealer, and then I've got Stitches actually signed it. Philip signed it on the back. So there's only 3 of these exist. This is one I've just kind of held on just because of sentimental thing. It hung in our museum for a while. So I've got that one, and then Chelsea.
So you said that art is done by?
It's done by a serial killer, Philip Jablonski. So what happens a lot of scenarios is. When we started as collectors, we would buy from trusted sources. There are people that make their life about, like, that's one thing when me and Chelsea started collecting, we kind of drew a line and said, okay, we're not going to write these people. We don't look at them as heroes. We just are intrigued by, like
the psyche.
The psyche, yeah.
And
exactly.
that's a big part, and I definitely want to say this because that's a big part of why we chose to, because we didn't have to do, we just did a bigger interview
Soft White
Underbelly, and I'm a very private person, so while you knew Chad through music and stuff like that, like I've been there with him behind the scenes doing the same stuff he's done. I hate social media. I don't care to be in the spotlight. I'm perfectly content going home and never having to speak to anybody, ever. And he's a social butterfly, and I love that about him.
Me too.
I'm over here. Look at me.
Talking to people, and so the biggest reason why we kind of decided to talk about it was because I got so sick and tired of seeing the only people talk about. Murderabilia is the technical name for the stuff done by the serial killers. It was all just these pretty repulsive people, to be honest with you, kind of like well, I don't really care what you think about me. I'm making money. I don't really care about the victims. Just very vile, foul people.
Yeah.
That's not the entirety of any kind of true crime art dealer or murderabilia dealers or anybody involved in oddities. We come from a much different place than anybody else who's been very outspoken about what we do. There are very many like-minded people, but not many outspoken. So the ones that have been outspoken have been turds.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to, we decided
and you can't polish a turd.
No, you can't polish.
No,
You paint it gold, but it's still turd.
We come from a very different aspect from anybody who's been public about this, I guess. Yeah.
So we wanted to kind of be.
Yeah,
let's start with I don't know, you guys, what your time's looking like, but
we're good.
okay, cool. You just
well,
give
this
me
is
a
our
5 or
first
10.
piece.
This is the first one I ever.
It's stuck to the carpet. Okay, we got it.
This is a brick from the Dahmer apartments when it was torn down. One of the construction workers' son took a bunch of the brick. He busted it into shards. It came with a letter of authenticity from the city, and also what was it? Paperwork from the lawyer that was notarized.
Yes.
So that's one of the Chelsea gave me this as a gift. That was like early on in our relationship.
That was right after the discussion of him being like, am I weird for wanting this? I'm like, this was ordered for you for Christmas.
He's like, she's like, you were weird long before you were starting wanting this.
I've definitely always been weird.
Me too.
And then stuff like that too. Things like.
Yeah, like this little cute dude right here, little mummified pig.
On the Jeffrey Dahmer, did y'all watch the Netflix series?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, what is this thing?
This is a mummified pig.
Okay.
Someone, the guy I got it from, Mountain Oddities, he added the eye in. Obviously, that's not the
it makes it look
actual
prettier.
eye. And just kind of spruce it up a little bit, get a few more dollars for it. But yeah, I watched the Dahmer thing. I actually only watched about half of it. It kind of started having an effect on me. Like I didn't, because it just kind of, I mean, we don't think any of these people are cool. I just want to say that. Like we were on Soft White Underbelly. We only had 30 minutes. It's hard to tell your whole life story in 30 minutes. Unfortunately for me, he wanted me to bring things to show and tell. I brought like this human humor spawn. I have ADHD. It's a lot easier for me to talk if I have like you move my hands or if I have something in my hand. I meant to be like kind of like pulling things out of my coat the whole time. You know, like here's a bone. Here's this. Well, instead we walk in. He took our picture. Next thing we're sitting on stools. It's like, oh, it's going down like right now, you know. So we get right into it. I still got this bone in my hand. So the whole time, like I'm just talking to him. So there were like, I had to stop reading the comments because half of the people were like, man, you know, like there were, well, it was about three ways. A third of the people thought we were the devil. A third of people thought, wow, this is really interesting and cool. And the other third were just people saying, I mean, just talking like they knew us and saying like the worst things about you.
Yeah.
You know?
But you were treating the bone like a fidget spinner.
I was treating it like a fidget spinner. And I wasn't intending on that. It just kind of happened like that. So let's move right into, let me see if I can grab this knife.
But no, that is, I mean, and I think that's a great point to say is like, hey, it's not that we idolize these people or we think they were right or anything else.
No, they're horrible. They're
they're horrible people. But at the end of the day, Unsolved Mysteries made a lot of money when I was a kid.
Well, and there's a reason why there's a Netflix series done on Jeffrey Dahmer. It brings interest.
Oh, 100%.
Well, I mean, people want to know, I guess, in the mind of a killer, like, you know, why, what happened, what made him that way, you know?
Because most of us can't fathom doing any of these things, like taking a human life, let alone taking it to the extremes a lot of these guys did. And it's like, what went so wrong? Or is it an inherent thing? Were they born this way? What trauma did they go through? It's there's so many caveats to it, and that's the intriguing part. And all, like, as well as the people who perpetrated the crimes, there were victims. And how were the victims affected? How did their family get affected? How did the community get affected? It's a ripple effect. All the time you hear, well, you know, we were a community who never locked our doors, and our kids, you know, walked to school unsupervised and stuff like that. And after, you know, it doesn't even have to be a notorious murder. After just one murder or kidnapping, like everybody buckles down, and it changes the course of how you live your life.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so there's so much to it, and we want to cover all of it, not just the shitbags.
The pretty ones are the stories that everybody knows.
Yes.
You know, like I mean, we'd already heard the story of Jeffrey Dahmer and Ted Bundy and all that, but that's the one that Netflix focused on. But there's so many more.
Oh yeah, man! Like one of, and not to get sidetracked, but one of mine I find most intriguing, and I talked about this on Soft White, was Israel Keys. This was a guy that was military. A lot of these guys have military experience, which is kind of odd, right? But he was a guy that would go to the extremes of traveling, getting a plane, traveling across country, renting a car, driving hours away, buying a Home Depot bucket, planning a murder kit, going back home, coming back 6 months later, so it'd be harder for them to track down the footage, track down the receipts.
Wow.
Like, you know, this is... you know, like
that's full on premeditated.
100%. You know, just
super planned.
And for me, like when people ask me, because you know my parents, they don't like what I do. You know, they don't like this part of me. A lot of friends I have don't like it. And I think that was a lot of the reasons we were in the background so much in the entertainment world, because of things we liked. But you know, it was just.
We were too weird to have at the Thanksgiving table.
Yeah, true that.
Well, y'all are always welcome at my Thanksgiving
I
table.
appreciate it. Same here.
I think y'all are great.
Dude, I appreciate that.
I mean, like, should be on stages speaking. I mean, you guys are phenomenal in my opinion.
$20 before we started.
It was 25 actually. We don't do nothing
30.
cheap around here. No.
Yeah. So I just want to clarify, we don't idolize these people. We don't think it's cool. Like, people have been collecting dark things since the beginning of time. If you don't think for a second someone could own you know, the knife that killed some famous king, or sword that, you know, it's a lot. People look at it differently when they go to a Ripley's and they see a shrunken head or they see a serial killer artifact than they do a couple tattooed people. You know, for whatever reason, people look at us sometimes. You know, but I think I'm the kind of person, I will always sit down with someone and hear them out and talk to them and learn about it before I make any kind of assumption about that person, you know.
Yeah.
So right here, this is cool. This was given from an outlaw biker who his story is incredible. If in the future he's changed his life, this is a human femur bone knife that he personally made. You guys are more than welcome to hold it if you got any interest. So he's went through some stuff. I've seen his vest. He's been shot multiple times, stabbed multiple times. He's about 6'7", 300 pounds, fully tattooed. Probably in his late 50s.
So you're saying you wouldn't go out of your way to fight him?
No. I would not disagree with the guy. But he changed his life. He's doing a lot of good for like troubled youth. Just a really incredible story, and we hope to capture one day. But another big oddities dealer that we do a lot of business with, he gave me that as a gift. One of my favorite things right there.
Now, how do you acquire?
So that's what a lot of people. So a lot of people assume that was a soft white thing too. We actually did our podcast follow-up to answer questions.
Of doing it ourselves. They're like, these people probably have.
They're from their basement. So a lot of.
Oh wow! Yeah. A lot of people. Why would you go to that extreme in your mind of like, oh my gosh, they're killing people and harvesting the bones?
If we were, we'd have a lot more shit to sell. Like,
But and we probably wouldn't be selling it. That's like, hey, look at me, everybody.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff is required. A lot of old medical specimens, unarticulated skeletons. That's where a lot of your skeletons come from. Obviously, during wartime, you know, back in don't quote me on it, but you know, during World War II. And prior to that, some soldiers brought home bones, skulls, and stuff as trophies, like American soldiers.
Right.
So a lot of that, there's a lot of kind of like gray areas in the collecting world. A lot of things are kind of grandfathered in at a certain point. And there are some states they're cracking down and making it, you know, it changes. What we do today may not be what we can do tomorrow. Yeah. And in that case, we'll do something else, bro. Like we've sold horror toys. You know, we'll find another avenue.
You know what's interesting to think about is I know so many people that collect arrowheads.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know what arrowheads you were used for, right?
Either killing food or killing the opposite tribe.
That's the thing, dude. There's a lot of people that will look at us and think a certain way of us and are okay with people collecting World War II memorabilia. Like I literally saw an Instagram ad for a traveling Holocaust museum. I think was coming to the Nashville area, and there you're going to go and see the shoes. Like that's one of the most vile, disgusting things that's ever happened and ever. You could take every serial killer ever exists, add their body count together, and it's not going to be a drop in a bucket. And there are people that collect those things. I don't think any kind of way of it. It's not something I collect, but you know, hey, we live in America, man. You could kind of do as long as it's legal.
Yeah,
you know, you can do what you want.
As long as you ain't harvesting the bones yourself.
Oh yeah, as long as you ain't harvesting.
Right.
No, but that's very interesting. You know, I think obviously y'all, you know, you have to be ready to know that kind of stuff is going to be there, especially people that are, you know.
I was going to show you the box I brought it in. This is this.
Our kids.
Yeah, I need to put this in a box just
from Christmas.
Because I always, when we travel, sometimes, especially with things, it's like it's only a matter of time we'll get pulled over. And I'll have to explain this. The cop's not going to know. He's probably going to arrest us. But at the end of the day, it'll all work out.
What they have in the back? They had a human femur bone and a skull.
Yeah, this is a partial. As you can tell, it's got the price tag on it, but it's a human skull cap right here. So this one came with several, and this came from like a old medical specimen. Because a lot of doctors, our last biggest amount we bought from was from a son. His grandfather died, and they went and he had like this big collection of skulls, jawbones, and stuff like that. He was like a dentist or a doctor, right?
I would be certain enough to say that 90 some odd percent of any kind of human remains that you come across in the oddities world are retired medical specimens. So they've been used in educational or for educational purposes. Their bodies that have been donated to science have served their purpose. They do rotate them out, and hopefully they find a good home and it's not just weirdos that are like, oh, I'll turn that into a cereal bowl or something, you know. And if that's what you want to do, then ew. But you know, there are people who just want to have an articulated skeleton, and you know, before that you're not able to what was it? you weren't able to get it at that point in time, because like if you donate your body to science and you're articulated and you're hanging up and like your body is doing what you intended it to do, eventually it'll get retired and somebody will get the opportunity to have one of those, and it's really cool.
There were a lot of
you're saying in my hand right now.
Yes, that's all.
I'm holding what used to be a person's skull.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That used to be the casing of their soul.
Do we have a clue?
No.
Do we have a clue how this person died?
I have no clue. That literally came with a...
Because it looks like they took a knife chop right there through the back.
It could have been...
And then there's something going on here. They got smashed in with something,
Well, a lot of...
Don't drop it. It's $450 skull.
Could have been a fall off the bunk bed.
There's no telling.
Or maybe he fell off a horse and there was a sidewalk there. Oh, you know what? I bet he was riding in a golf cart. He leaned down. He leaned down to pick up his golf ball. He was too close to the cart path. Bam!
Yeah.
Hit his skull, rolled out. End of story.
I don't think there were golf carts in the late 1800s, but if there were, I'd kind of like to
golf chariot.
If part of it was chipped off
and
you found it on the beach, it would be a rock you'd find walking the beach.
True that, you wouldn't know.
Like it's the way, I guess, fossilized almost.
Yeah, it was definitely got some age. And
it's
like,
bone, so it was hard before.
Right? On that.
Yeah, it's definitely aged. But it's, I don't know.
There were a lot of comments.
I think it's really fun to see, even just speculating.
Yeah, I think it's like
here it's fun. It's a conversation.
This takes me back to being a kid in science class and getting something in your hand. A lot of times it'd be like some kind of fossilized dinosaur or whatever, and just about wow, this is like I can hold this, I can own this. I understand why some people find it kind of weird and dark. There was a lot of comments on the soft white thing that basically said like, how would you feel if that was your skull?
That was
I'm the
question.
last person to ask, because like for me, when I'm dead, dude, well, you know what I mean? Like I would almost be like, hey, it'd be kind of cool to know somebody gets some enjoyment or has it in a glass case showing off to their friends, if that was even a thing, I'd be...
I'm still at the party, even though... Hey, your body, as you said, is just a casing for your soul.
I didn't mean that in a derogatory
way. But what you're saying is correct. It's like when you think about the human body as we live on this earth, it's temporary, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely. One
way or the other, wherever you're going into the afterlife, you're going into the afterlife. Obviously, there's people that don't believe in anything. They believe it's just like we're here and then we're gone and that's the end of it. And if they're right, then oh well. If they're not right, then I'm glad I was right about what I was right about. Yeah. But regardless, it's temporary. You get 80 years, maybe you get 100 years. I think the oldest person right now, I looked it up the other day, 118, little old lady. It's like 118, and that we know that's the oldest known living person. I think there's a man that's 114 in Sri Lanka or somewhere like that. But it's a temporary shell, and your soul, that the life part of you, to me, moves on and goes to heaven or hell and spends eternity there and all that. So when I look at this, I do look at the body as like, man, this is just a little thing that's holding you for now. Yeah. And eventually, you're either going to end up in the ground, or some people have above ground tombs and things like that. For me, I'm like, throw me in a pine wood box and, or just, cremate me, whatever you. I don't want my wife to go spend 50, 60 grand putting me in the ground, So I think it's very interesting. What's this last piece down here? I don't want to get
so let me, this is from the Vampire of Paris. His name's Nico Klaus. I started corresponding with Nico, me and Chelsea did probably 10 years ago, mainly to buy things from him. So this dude has an interesting story. It's a 3-headed demon. This was like, so you call this murderabilia, that's the kind of name that was given to it. The value of something is determined by, so if you've got an early on prison painting, like the first year they're in is going to be more valuable than the year before they die, just kind of like anything else. Also the content of it, a lot of death row inmates and serial killers will paint flowers. Nobody wants that. Those are probably like the smaller value, unless it's like a Bundy or some big name. So the darker the content, the more expensive the piece. So this is done by Nico. He has an interesting story. He actually he got sentenced to, don't quote me on this either, but I want to say it was like, over there I think you can only do 20 years for a murder charge. I think he got sentenced to 12 and he got out on a loophole and only did 7. He's actually walking free. He was a cannibal and a killer, but only convicted of murder. has turned his life around, and now he does art and sells weird things, and maybe coming to the U.S. this coming year. We're trying to work out a deal and tour around with him and do Q&As talking about like his transformation. When he was a young child, he accidentally killed his grandfather and was always looked as a killer, and it kind of molded him into who he became. But definitely very intelligent dude. It's why, you know, it's eerie and wild, but what I would like to do, or what me and Chelsea hope to do, is bring him over, have Q&A, have real discussions where people can look at him as, you know, someone who made a mistake in their early 20s and not, you know, in their 40s as a changed man, you know.
Yeah, that's what life's about.
Well, I even look at that on the level, like you look at a guy, and we've talked about this before. There's a wide receiver from Alabama named Henry Ruggs III, who he ended up playing for the Las Vegas Raiders the first or second year that they were there. And kid was 22 years old, making millions of dollars, buys a Corvette that's got 800 horsepower or whatever it is, goes out and going 157 miles an hour, slams into somebody, kills them.
Wow.
And he'll spend the rest of his life in prison, you know. Yeah. And I'd see a lot of judgmental people, you know, go on there and be like, he deserves it, he should spend his life, and, you know, he took that life, so he should give up his life. I'm not saying that they're wrong in the fact that he did take a life, and it's terrible what he did.
Yeah.
He didn't go out with the intention of doing that. He didn't think, I wonder if I can go run into somebody 157 miles an hour tonight and kill them. But if you were 22 and you were given millions of dollars and a Corvette that would do 200 miles an hour in Las Vegas, what would you have done? Because we speak from a place of not knowing that person's story, not knowing what they're, you know, put into. I know for me, I had a 1979 El Camino that had 255 gears. It'd go 150 miles an hour. It was literally a metal box, you know, but I'd get that thing up to 125, 130 miles an hour, riding, you know, back roads, the straight stretches and all that. And I didn't have any money, and I lived in Perry County, Tennessee.
Right.
So it's like, what would I have done if I had a 700-800 pound, you know, horsepower Corvette in Sin City with millions of dollars in my pocket, and I was playing in the NFL. You know, I remember people judged Justin Bieber when he started making mistakes in his early 20s. I'm like, the kid was famous from the time he was 14. He's got millions and millions of dollars, and now he's of age. He just turned 21. What do you expect that a 21-year-old with $500 million or $500 million is going to do? You know.
Well, here's the kicker: you're not even fully formed biologically. You're not even wired to make those types of decisions, the decisions that require some kind of foresight, until you're 25 years old.
Yeah. Well, so, and that's a very broad spectrum, because
I
got a couple buddies that took them to about 35. Maybe I was one of those buddies myself.
Some get it sooner, some get it later, some never get it. But in general, like, you're not even wired to be able to make those kinds of decisions. So if you can't have a redemption story, then I think kind of what's the point? If you can't give somebody grace, if you can't see from, you know, their side, their point of view, if you've never been in their shoes, even if you can't understand it, try to sympathize or empathize with their situation. We're all human, and there are bad humans, there are good humans, there are humans that are still on the fence, but it's worth hearing everybody's story to, if you don't learn anything, or if you don't take anything from it, at least learn something about yourself or for yourself.
Well, let's see, the old saying, if you didn't have rainy days, you wouldn't know about the sunny ones.
That's very
true.
So with that being said, obviously we're pretty close to out of time. Y'all are intriguing. I've always been a fan of yours since the first day I met you and watched you work, and we've had, you know, several phone conversations, but never really got to become buddies. But I was honored when you reached out to us and said, hey man, I've been loving the podcast, you know, would love to come on sometime. I was like, dude, I said, how cool is that, you know, because you know, there's times I'm like, hey, would you want to come be on the podcast? I think you'd enjoy it, you know. But knowing that you're like, hey, this struck you, it's like, hey, that would be something cool to be on. We're growing pretty rapidly now, especially working with the Hit Labs here. But anyways, I want to make sure we tell everybody where they can find y'all, where they can find your, you know, your stores, your memorabilia, if they are into what y'all are doing, to make sure we, you know, give them the
100%.
places.
And thanks for having us, man. I thought it would be a great mix, because it wasn't like something you guys normally did, and we could have an honest, open conversation. And I felt like you listened to your stuff, I was able to tell that you guys were open-minded and, you know, and heartfelt. But yeah, you can find all of our stuff online, offbeathorror.com. I always say that word wrong. Say it one more time.
Our link tree, Offbeat horror.com.
Yeah.
Don't go to beatoffhorror.com. If you go to beatoffhorror.com, it's a whole other, don't go there.
Our shop is, or our brand, I guess, is Offbeat. It's Offbeat Oddities and Collectibles, and he just can't say horror.
Yeah, I can't say it right. From Alabama.
Horror.
It doesn't come.
Or Monster.
Like something else.
Say it.
Monster.
No, he says Munster, and it's the cutest thing.
Well, when I grew up, they were the Munsters.
Yeah.
That's not what he's referring to at all.
Well, we also do several things. We do a convention at the Corvette Museum every year. It's our 8th one coming up called Vet City Con. We'll bring in celebrities from all over. If you ever want to come as a guest, we also bring in like reality people. You know, you're always got a table at our spot.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything you could find there, from our podcast
to our personal socials, our podcast, our store, our Facebook group. We have a wonderful, amazing Facebook community of people who just have all kinds of things to offer. It doesn't matter if you're into just comic stuff or Funko Pops or anything like that. Not only do they buy and sell stuff, but sometimes people just want to show off the cool stuff they collect. And we have a really cool group of people that will at least say, wow, like that's, they'll validate your nerdiness.
Your collection.
Really
your collection.
Cool. Yeah.
Hey, listen, I still have all of my He-Man toys.
Heck yeah,
I have my original Ghostbusters Stay Puft Marshmallow Man stuffed. That's still, the eyes still glow in the dark, the mouth still glows in the dark. And this is the one I got when I was a kid. So it wasn't like, oh, Vinny went and collected this. I've had it since I was a kid. When my brother's like, how do you still have all the He-Man stuff? I'm like, I just kept it in good shape.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I still have all my comic books. I got probably 1,000 comic books and sit in the crawl space of my attic, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I do nothing with them. I'm giving my son as he, gets ready to look at them, except for the ones that I think are worth money. Yeah. But anyways, so, we want to make sure people get to you. We appreciate y'all coming on today. With that being said, make sure you like, share, comment. If you don't like something, tell us that too. We don't care. Keep the algorithm going. That's all we want you to do. We're here to have a good time. We're going to spread positive. We're going to spread love. And every now and then we're going to get into the dark stuff too and let you make your own decisions. So that's what we did today. And we hope you liked it. And if you don't, we don't care. Love you. 5 stars.